So let's talk about our housekeeping for today. Please put your questions in the chat. There are going to be some times when it will be off for demonstration purposes, but there'll be plenty of opportunities to get those questions in there. So please make sure you throw those in. 1.5 hours ACV REP credit, and of course, closed captioning is available. Feel free to take advantage of that if it's going to assist you. We have two presenters today. Joe Hodge, Technical Innovations Product Manager at APH. And also part of those webinars quite a bit, Jim Sullivan from APH, Director of Social Enterprise. So we thank both of them for participating and helping us with CodeJumper today. Challenges, are any of these things familiar to you? Finding accessible coding solutions for students in elementary school or any students, actually. Active participation in coding lessons. Sometimes students don't have a way to participate. Access to accessible STEM and STEAM activities. Sometimes those are just not available or hard to come by. Resources for teachers and parents. Many times folks just don't know how to find what's out there. Even if they think they know that things exist, maybe they can't find them. If those are challenges for you, well, hopefully today we'll come up with some answers for you and help you find some of the resources that you're looking for. And let's talk about our objectives for the day. So we will describe at least 3 ways at least CodeJumper can engage students in learning block coding. We'll list at least 3 ways students can express their understanding of block coding concepts using CodeJumper. And we'll list 2 ways the lesson algorithms and sequences can be used in group and individual instruction settings. So we do want to mention that, this is for individual students. It's also for groups, and we will, think about what's best for the students you work with. Individual instruction, group instruction, maybe a combination of the two. So as we get started, Jim, can you talk to us today about our journey?
I'd be happy to. Thanks, Paul. So we're going to start off the day with talking about what CodeJumper is specifically, who's it for, and where is it going to be used. So we are going to start with sort of an introduction. We're going to move into an overview of the kit itself. So Joe will walk us through some of the different pods and the app. And then we're going to specifically get into a lesson. We're going to walk through a guided activity, and then we're going to get into doing some exploration. So you'll see myself, Joe, and other members of the webinar team actually collaborate on really building a computer program, which will be made up of commands, and those commands will make up an algorithm, and the algorithm will make up a program. So we want to bring that point home and how that could play out in a classroom. We also want to spend some time telling you a little bit about how to build custom sound sets, and then we will wrap up with what we've discovered. We do want to encourage you to put your questions into the chat, and periodically you'll hear Joe and I stop and pause and ask you for questions. And so let's go ahead and get started. And we're going to get started with Paul beginning to quiz Joe a little bit, or ask Joe a little bit about just what CodeJumper is.
All right, thank you. Sounds like a good time today. So let's have some fun. Joe, can you start off by letting us know what CodeJumper is?
Yes, so CodeJumper is a physical programming language designed by Microsoft and then developed by APH. So it's basically to teach computer coding program concepts to kids ages 7 to 11. And we're going to kind of walk through why CodeJumper is inclusive as we walk through explaining the parts in the kit, and sort of how folks who are blind or visually impaired or sighted can all kind of use CodeJumper to learn together.
All right, now Joe, the slide says that this is specifically for kids ages 7 to 11. Can you expand a little bit on bringing that into kids who are younger or a little bit older? I mean, as we heard in our poll question, some of our participants said coding maybe doesn't begin until kids get into middle school, and in some instances even high school. So while it's designed specifically for ages 7 to 11, tell us a little bit about using it with older students or younger students.
Yeah, so using it with younger students, so I actually got the experience of taking this to the Kentucky School for the Blind over summer camp, and they had kids in there who were 6 and 7 and 5, and basically, you can, all the pieces have tactile markings on them. They have dials that they can turn, and so you can sort of start, like, for example, learning as they plug in the pod, this is going to happen to the hub. It's going to click. And then as you turn the dial, this is what happens. So it starts putting the mainframe and how, just things work, physical switches work for young kids. And they're going to like the sound effects that this makes. So you can tell stories, you can do different things. As you get older, so folks who are over 11, let's say you get into school and you're not learning coding until like the 6th grade. I actually use this with an intern who is in high school. And one of the neat things, and we're going to kind of do this later, is that you can actually make musical beats. So sort of like a garage band type of thing. And you're able to do loops and infinity, play beats forever. And he really enjoyed that. So I think, the component of learning this physically can't be understated. Like for me as an old adult, I was telling Betsy Ann this earlier when we were working together, I never knew what a loop looked like. It was hard for me to visualize a loop. I knew what it meant, but until I actually got to feel CodeJumper in my hand and feel the wires connect in that circle, that really put into retrospect of, okay, this is a loop, and now I understand that concept. So there's certain things that CodeJumper has taught me along the way as well.
All right, so Nikki, can you advance to the next slide? So in talking about, what CodeJumper is, there is a K-12 computer science framework that includes some core practices that would be a part of that framework. And so we talk about core practices. Computer science really should foster an inclusive computing culture. And that is truly what we're talking about with CodeJumper, including all kids. When we talk about inclusivity, right? Or we talk about equity, we're talking about kids who are coming from all different backgrounds or abilities. And CodeJumper allows all kids to really participate in that block coding curriculum. CodeJumper is also something that really encourages collaboration around computing, and you're going to see that. CodeJumper helps to recognize and helps to define computational problems. And as we begin to sort of build and work with our own sounds today, and piano sounds or other sounds, you're going to see us recognize, try to define, and then solve a problem, right? It allows us to develop and use abstractions, right? What is this going to be, or what can this become? CodeJumper really allows the kids to be able to sort of work in that abstract. It allows them to create computational artifacts. And so what is a computational artifact? Well, it's actually something that is actually created by a computer. And CodeJumper allows us to be able to test and allows us to refine those computational artifacts. And then it allows us to be able to communicate about computing. In a number of different ways. That could be in small group instruction, where the kids are talking about something that occurred with an adult or a professional, or it could be communicating about something through written or verbal expression. It could be actually communicating through the actual computer program that the kids complete. So when we talk about what CodeJumper is, I think it's also important to talk about what CodeJumper can do. All right, and so with that, I guess we can move on to the next slide and the next question in getting into what and who for CodeJumper.
Great, thanks, Sully. Joe, next question for you. How does CodeJumper work?
So CodeJumper teaches concepts with physical pods and audio feedback. So you can do songs, stories, theme sounds, sound sets, and custom sounds. So basically what you're going to have is you're going to have a hub and you plug things into. They use a 3.5 jack. And you're able to set your sound set and create what you want to create. So you can, it's kind of like, as Jim just stated, it's sort of endless because you can create your own sound sets, as we'll get into, and set your own stories.
And where's CodeJumper used?
So there we go. I got stuck there. CodeJumper is used in schools. It's used in coding clubs. It's used in camps. It can be used in group or individual settings. And the really fun thing is it can be used sort of to tell individual stories, or you can create music sound sets. So any one of those things, I've seen it used in different varieties.
Perfect. And so I see we talked about how many students can use a kit at a time, or
yeah, so we recommend one kit for three to four students. So with this, because it's a physical element, there's dials and plugs, just to get everyone's hands on it, we kind of recommend 3 to 4 students per kit.
Great, thanks for that information there. We want to ask you a question. We want to get your opinion about something. So Betsy Ann, if you could throw up this next poll question. Again, this is strictly an opinion question. So we would like to know, in your opinion, is block coding instruction best accomplished in groups or in one-on-one discussion? So your choices are one-on-one, group instruction, or it depends. So in your opinion, is block coding instruction best accomplished in groups or in one-on-one discussion, or some combination? So the it depends answer obviously would mean that you think that maybe a combination of the two is best. If you have any questions you want to throw in the chat now, this is a good time to do that. If you have some topics that you're hoping we'll get to, and we can clarify some of that for you now, we'll be happy to do that. And if not, we'll let that poll be up there for you to answer that.
Yeah, and as you guys reflect on that question, right? One-on-one group instruction, or it depends. I think one of the things that we again want to emphasize is that depending on if it's one-on-one or depending on whether it's group, that again, that all kids have the ability to be able to participate in that instruction, and that the instruction is the same. A little bit later on in the month of May, we'll invite in one of you to talk specifically about an experience that they had with using CodeJumper in I believe it was a 9-week quarter. And really what was happening was the instruction was going on with this particular student, but it was two different things. It was the group of mainstream students working on one project one-on-one. And so it wasn't group instruction, but it was the other student who was using CodeJumper, so they were able to participate, but they weren't doing the same thing as the other student. And so while there were advantages to the student who was using CodeJumper that we'll talk about, it really makes you, again, kind of think about some of those conundrums that you run into in the classroom, or in situations where you're scrambling to make sure that students do have access to the curriculum, and to be able to participate in the same thing that everyone else is, regardless of whether it's one-on-one or group. So we do aim to address that and bring in some discussion about that later on this year. So look forward to some communication on that in the coming weeks. It looks like we've got some good participation. So Betsy Ann, you want to review the results?
Absolutely. So for the question, in your opinion, is block coding instruction best accomplished in groups or in one-on-one discussion? 7% said one-on-one discussion, 15% said group instruction, and 78% said it depends. So lots of folks out there who think that You could use it in group instruction in some cases, one-on-one in other cases. But it is a benefit of CodeJumper that can be used both for groups and for one-on-one instruction.
And I see that Lori Watson is asking the question, not having used this, I'm wondering if it would be possible for a teacher to lead this remotely, and if the setup is at the students, if set up at the student's home. And the answer to that question is yes, it certainly would be possible to do that. It could be challenging, but if you were using a solution that would allow you to be able to interface like a Teams, for instance, or a Zoom, or other type of meeting tool, it certainly would be possible for you to be able to interact with the student using CodeJumper, and to be able to kind of talk through and walk through some of the lessons. So absolutely possible, and hopefully we'll be able to illustrate that, because we'll be doing that actually today.
Yeah, you brought up my point. I was going to say, if you later on in the demo, we're actually going to sort of show and demonstrate how you could do that in the classroom by talking about tracing your code and different things. And I think it'll be a good tool for you to learn or watch and use in your classroom as well.
So I think we're ready to jump into what CodeJumper is. So when we take a look specifically at the CodeJumper kit, we're specifically talking about the CodeJumper app, what we call the hub, pods, and plugs, and then specifically the resources. So when a kit arrives, it is made up of one hub. It is made up of 8 play pods. It is made up of several pause pods, several loop pods. It is made up of a number of different plugs that allow you to work with constants and variables. And then as far as resources, the resources include online resources that you're able to download in the form of lesson plans, user guides, and then also videos. So we're going to get into that, and we're going to start specifically with talking specifically about the app itself. So Nikki, can you move on to the next slide? And Joseph, can you describe the CodeJumper app specifically for Windows 10?
Yeah, and I do want to start off by saying that. So we're going to be showing the Windows app today. It is also available on Android and Chromebooks at this current time. So you can actually see the apps they're a little different, but they kind of work the same. So this is going to be talking specifically today about the Windows app. So we have basically 6 different icons on the menu bar that you can see on the top. So we have a Bluetooth symbol that tells you if it's connected to the hub. And the screen reader, it does work with the JAWS, NVDA, and narrator screen readers. So when you tap to the Bluetooth indicator, for example, it'll say connected. There's a musical note for custom sounds, right? A gear looking icon. There's a lowercase I for about, so you can tap there and see what version you're running. And you do download this from the Microsoft Store. So on Windows 10, you can just go open up the Microsoft Store app, type in CodeJumper, and you can get it for free. There's a right arrow to play the program. So this is once you have things connected to the different threads, you can run your and play your computer program. There's a megaphone to read your code aloud. So this will actually give you speech feedback. So when we get into different things, that's kind of fun to listen to, as I discovered with Betsy Ann with Beethoven. There's a square indicator for stop the program. And then below these icons are the 4 threads. And I'm going to talk about those threads once we get into the hub here in a second. So Nikki, can you go to the next slide?
Oh, hi. One second. Let's go back. A couple of questions for you. So first of all, Joe, for Windows 10, is the app accessible? Can I use it with a screen reader?
Yes. Yeah, you can use it with JAWS, NVDA, and narrator. Okay.
Great. And can I use the CodeJumper app without the pods?
No. I mean, you can look at it, but you would just basically be getting the screenshot, because you'd want the hub of the pods to be able to play the sounds and do things. Yeah. So I mean, your answer to that is yes, you can open it and look at it, but functionality, it won't really do a lot.
And I asked the question because questions because we frequently get those questions. So Is the app accessible? And then the second question is, can I use the app independent of the pods? And the answer is no, you do need the pods. Now, you'll have to forgive me, Joe, if I'm asking this question and you've already answered this, but the app is available for both Chromebooks as well as the Android platform. Are those two apps the same as the Windows 10 app?
So they are a little different. So as you can, for folks who are site dependent and can see the screenshot here, the app on Android and Chrome, only you can see like one thread at one time. So like below here where you have the 4 threads showing at once, because due to screen limitations and sizes, we just couldn't pull that off on the Android and Chromebook side. So you see basically one thread at a time, but you can flip to the next page and see, thread 2 and etc. They do also work on Android with TalkBack, the screen reader for Google, and then Chromebox is the screen reader for the Chromebooks.
All right, so I think actually what we're going to do now is I'm actually going to start doing my screen sharing, and I'm going to share my screen. And when I do that, you're going to be able to actually see the pod, and you're also seeing, as if you've been here before, the Sullivan poker table. And I apologize, we did get 4 inches of snow here in northern Ohio today, and the heater has kicked on. So if you hear a little noise in the background, that would be heat coming into the house because of how cold it is. But anyway, Joe, do we want to start with talking about the pod? I'm going to point as you describe the hub for us as we get started and what the hub is.
So we're going to start with the hub. This is the brains of the operation. So on this, you have a dial that's your actual volume up and down. And it works just like an old-fashioned sort of radio. And it has a speaker. So when you connect this through Bluetooth to your Windows tablet or computer or even your Android, what's going to happen is sound is going to come out of it. It's ultimately like a Bluetooth speaker. On the front, we have 4 3.5 jacks. These are actually your threads. So you would plug in the different types of pods that we're going to get to in a second into these threads to do the different sound sets. So moving along through the box here, we have play pods, which have 2 dials on them, and each pod that I'm going to demonstrate are going to be different colors. So these have blue dials, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Jim?
You are correct. It's like,
look at that, totally blind, got it down.
Little Carolina blue, although Amy Campbell might say it's not quite Carolina blue.
So the play pod has a 3.5 jack with a wire going, into the actual unit. It has 2 dials. So one is a donut shaped dial that is going to control what sound you hear. So if you're, for example, on different sounds, if you choose a sound set, it's going to choose different sounds within that sound set. The taller shaped dial is going to be your duration dial. And depending on what you're doing, that's going to control things like speed rate or possibly duration. So moving on, we have a pause pod. You get 3 of these in the kit, and these are orange, I believe.
Yeah, they're a little bit like Golden Gate Bridge orange for those who are light dependent.
And you have a dial on this one as well. And what this one does is it controls how long you want the program to pause for. So this is really handy, like if you're telling a story or if you want to maybe space out, instruments or something like that. If you're creating when you're creating a program. We have a loop pod. This has a yellow dial and it has 2 wires on it. So it actually has 2 3.5 wires. And this actually helps create the loop. Jim, I don't know if you can really quickly just show sort of, when I say loop, what that means. If you wouldn't mind maybe plugging that into the hub and just sort of running a play pod to it real quick, just to kind of show what I'm talking about. So on the loop itself, on the loop pod itself, there are actually 2 jacks to plug play pods in, and you can't, I think there's 2. Yep, we heard the click. So every time you plug, when you plugs into the hub, you actually get feedback to let you know that there was a connection made. Also, when you unplug something, there will be a disconnect sound, and that's super helpful for folks to know that the connection was actually made with these.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so if we just kind of want to do a little bit of tracing, if I can get everything in here. So I've got my hub. My hub is plugged into the first thread. Coming out of the, or I'm sorry, the first play pod is coming out of the first thread. Then the loop pod is connected to the first play pod.
Now,
Or,
can you,
the loop, I'm sorry, pod.
Yeah, so one thing that's really neat here is we have two wires. I mentioned the two wires. One wire is shorter than the other. So if you're blind or visually impaired, or even sighted, like your question may be, well, how do you know which to connect to which? So the short wire will plug into the play pod, or would plug into, like, it would be the first thing that you would connect ultimately. And the longer wire is going to wrap around and plug into the end of your thread. So can you show? I'm assuming they can see that on the screen.
Yeah, let me try to kind of again go through this. So we've got our hub with a play pod connected to the first thread, and then we've got a second play pod connected to the first, and then we bring in our loop pod. So connected to our loop pod is one play pod, and if I wanted to, I could bring in, say, a second play pod. So my loop could consist of two play pods that are going to play two different sounds or two different parts of the story itself. And then coming out of the loop pod, I could connect another play pod. So if we trace this, it would be play pods for the first sound, play pod for the second sound, and then we've got the loop pod that could come in and play two sounds in a loop once, twice, three times.
And the dial on the loop is what controls how many times that plays.
You got it.
And we're going to go into loops in another exercise down the road here. I think it's in May or June. I forget which one, but we are going to talk more about this. So if it sounds confusing, please come back, because we're going to really dive into loops at some point in these webinars. So moving on in the box, we have a selection pod. Now this is the encoding if this then that statements. So it's a green dial. It's got two green dials on it. And basically you would plug this in and you can choose, like, if it's, if something is greater than 4, it would do this. If it's less than 4, it would do that. And it kind of creates those if then this statement. So pretty neat. We have a merge pod. It's also green, but it has no dial, but it has two wires. And then we get to the fun part. We get plugs. And the reason I mention all of these is because all these parts, you can't get your hands on these, unfortunately, being at your computer, but all these pieces do feel different. And it was really neat to see all the sort of design that goes into this. So the plugs, as Jim gets these out, we have constants. We have 8 of these. And on this, you have raised dots that you can feel. So you can feel the numbers 1 through 8 on the different plugs. And you would just plug these into, let's say, a play pod, or maybe a loop or something, depending on what you're doing in the program. We have a random pod. So this would actually be able to, generate a random thing within your program. If you plugged it in, it has a raised R on it. We have an infinity plug with the infinity symbol. I love this one because it's the one I can use to annoy people the most with, sound. There's a counter plugs. So there's 2 of these. There's a plus and a minus, raise plus, raise minus. We have a variable plug. We get 3 of those in the box. And then we have an extension cable.
All right.
And that is the Code Jumper kit.
I feel like I need to break out like a deck of cards and start playing solitaire or something like that. All right. I think if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to get into talking a little bit about the lessons. So Nikki, you want to start sharing your screen again for me? And then move into so introducing the Code Jumper curriculum. So one of the great things about CodeJumper is the curriculum that comes along with it. And one of the things to talk about is right off the bat is how the curriculum specifically aligns to national technology standards. So as you begin to move through the curriculum, the vocabulary and the learning objectives will align very nicely with existing curriculum that's going to be used within your state or your region of the country. The curriculum itself is made up of 19 lessons. 8 are what we would refer to as primary, and today we're going to talk about, for instance, algorithms, and we're going to talk about threads, and we're going to talk about lessons in the coming weeks. But then we also move into 11 advanced lessons, and we'll talk about how the lessons are broken down here in a moment. But as the students progress through the curriculum, one of the ways in which you're going to track their progress is through journaling. And there is no specific template for journaling because all kids are going to express what they know in different ways. Some are going to write out, some are going to type out, some are going to braille out. Maybe others are going to verbalize how it is that they are capturing the information. That process of journaling is going to be specifically up to you. At the end of each of the lessons, there are 2 assessments. And those assessments are made up of a project, and there is a rubric to score the project. And so those assessments could be done individually by the student, or they could be done as a group. One of the important things to point out is that there's no save or save as with this. You are not able to capture and save what the students are doing. And so what can you do? What we have seen is teachers specifically recording programs, and we do have, and when we get to May and we invite Rob and Lowell back and one of our teacher buddies from here in Northeastern Ohio, Shelley Mack, there is actually a recording of a student actually doing some exploration. So that's a little bit about the curriculum, how you're going to track progress, and what it is that you would be able to do to capture what it is that the kids are doing. So let's talk a little bit about the lessons now. So Nikki, can you move on to the next slide? So the lessons themselves are really sort of made up of an overview, unplugged activities, guided activities, exploration, and then a check for progress. So when we talk about an overview at the start of each lesson, you're going to find objectives, you're going to try and vocabulary, you're going to find resources that you need, as well as the materials that you're going to need. So what do we mean by resources? Well, specifically, the lessons are going to point to tell you what some of the online resources are going to do to help you prepare. What are you going to need to know? And the materials specifically, what are you going to need? Oftentimes there is a reference to code cards that could be used with your students. You may need to braille them out. You may need to turn them into large print. And so that initial overview will tell you specifically what you're going to be getting through. And then you'll get into specifically an unplugged activity. And a few weeks ago, we did an unplugged activity where we were doing some debugging with really kind of walking through and asking the kids to identify maybe what was wrong in the sequence of cards, what card was out of place. Then you would specifically get into a guided activity where you would actually use one of the sound sets and a number of the pods along with the hub to create or to walk through that lesson. I think the exploration piece is important because there is time to allow the kids to be able to explore what it is that they've learned on their own. And I'll use sort of this example. If you are teaching a student how to write Braille with an electronic, or excuse me, a note-taking type device that will allow the kids to be able to experiment with the 6 Braille input keys. And they're practicing their letters A, B, C, D. As they begin to do that, they do what they explore. And depending on how you've got the speech set up, they could begin to trip across the contractions like the WH or the ING contraction. And so They learn through exploring. CodeJumper allows the kids to be able to do just that. And we've heard stories of the kids exploring after it is that they've walked through a lesson, and they begin to develop or work on a concept that they will explore further down the road. And when they get to that concept or that vocabulary and they begin to learn about it, they put the connection together. That's something that I was doing previously when I was exploring or playing around with this previously, right? So a lesson then has that check for understanding, specifically where you would have the kids play their computer program, or you would have the kids journal about the computer program so that you know that they know what it is that's going on. All right, so let's specifically take a look at some things regarding lesson 2, and then there's going to be a quiz. Right, so lesson 2 is about sequences, and it's about algorithms. So the learning objective for lesson 2 is that after this lesson, the students will be able to design a simple computer program that uses a sequence of commands. And so what's the vocabulary? So the first vocabulary word is sequence. A sequence is where one action is followed by another action. You open the car door, you sit down, you insert the key, you turn the key, and so on and so forth, right? Sequence. An algorithm is a step-by-step process to complete a task. So something similar, you pull the jar of peanut butter out of the cabinet, you pull the knife out, you open the peanut butter jar. It's a step-by-step process to complete a task. A command is an instruction for the computer. Many commands put together make up an algorithm and a computer program. And many of you are doing commands on your computer all day long. You are using different keys to bring down menus and close out programs and so on and so forth. So, and then a computer program is an instruction for the computer, and many commands put together make up an algorithm and a computer program. So Joe and I are going to get into this in a moment, but if I'm not mistaken, we have a quiz for you about one of these vocabulary words. So can we move to the next slide? I'm incorrect.
Yes.
The next slide. Hold on one second, Paul. So just as an example, everybody, the resources specifically for this lesson, what the lesson is going to do is going to provide you with a link where you're going to specifically learn about the app that Joe described earlier. And then you're going to learn a little bit more about the hub. And then you're going to learn specifically about the play and pause pod, which would be used specifically in the guided activity. Now, Joe and I are not going to use that pause pod, but these links will take you where you can watch and learn. So oftentimes we get this question, do I need to, be trained in computer science instruction? And the answer is no, you don't. Certainly would be helpful, but with the lessons and the way they're structured, with the resources and the way in which they're structured, it gives you the opportunity to be successful with this. All right, so next slide. I think now we have no, we're still not ready for the quiz. All right, so the structure of the lesson plan includes an unplugged activity, a guided activity, exploration, and a check for standing. So too bad we're not quizzing them on this because they'd probably be ready for this. How about the next slide? Now we've got our poll question, Paul. Go for it.
We just wanted to make them wait a little bit. So here is the question. And one of the vocabulary words we talked about earlier is algorithm. So the question is, what is an algorithm? Pick the best choice. Is it a process by which green plants and some other organisms use sunlight to synthesize foods from carbon dioxide and water? Is it an empirical method of acquiring knowledge? Is it a set of problem-solving methods that involve expressing problems and their solutions in ways that a computer could also execute? Or is it a step-by-step process to complete a task? Which one of those is an algorithm?
All right, so our answers are coming in. If you have any questions now, it would be great to drop those into the chat. I think to this point, we've given you an idea of what, what's made up in a kit. And we've talked about the lesson, and we are going to use, the next 15 to 20, 25 minutes to kind of get into one of these. But do you have any questions for Joe? Or do you have any questions for me about CodeJumper? If you do, please feel free to drop those into the chat.
Yes, the chat is open. We've had about 58% of our audience complete this poll. Take a few more seconds to look at those questions carefully. There are a few I agree that might stump you since we've just introduced this vocabulary term. All right, a question has come in the chat. Is there an average or recommended time to complete each lesson?
All right. So I'm just like trying not to sort of state the what a wonderful question, because we hear that often, but it's so great because I think what we find is that it will take somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20 to 25 minutes to complete each lesson. And as you get going with the kit, you want to allow yourself a little bit more time, because there will be this element of getting familiar with the pieces and parts and getting them all out and executing the lesson. And sometimes, the courses, if you're doing this at school, the class periods could be anywhere from, 25 to 45 minutes, depending on what's going on. So 25 minutes or so, once you get rolling, keeping in mind that that's going to allow you to be able to do some exploration. So thank you for that question.
Great, 2 more questions have come in. 60% have voted on the poll, so keep on voting on that. Do you get the app for Chromebook in the Microsoft Store, or is it a plugin?
No, you actually get the Chromebook app in the Play Store. So on Chromebooks, there's a Play Store application on them. You would download it there. Same on Android as well.
Great, and as Jim was explaining, you can download CodeJumper and you can look around, but you need the hub, the play pods, you need that set to be able to complete tasks on CodeJumper.
Right. And I see the last question is with CodeJumper being on the Android platform, is it compatible with a Braille Note Touch? And the answer to that question is yes. As a matter of fact, it's also compatible with the APH Mat Connect. It would be compatible with the Prodigy Connect 12. And then it would also be compatible with the Reveal 16i. So those would be different solutions that you can use.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and close this poll and I will share the results with you. So what is the definition of an algorithm? 4% chose the process by which green plants and some other organisms use sunlight to synthesize foods from carbon dioxide and water. A few chose an empirical method of acquiring knowledge. 12% chose a set of problem-solving methods that involve expressing problems and their solutions in ways that a computer could also execute. And our by largest category at 74% chose a step-by-step process to complete a task. Now, Jim, which of these was the correct answer?
It would be the last one, with a step by a sequence of tasks. Can you read the last one for me, please?
A step-by-step process to complete a task.
Thank you very much. I've been multitasking here and moved off. So I think what we're ready to do is we're ready to get into demonstrating CodeJumper a little bit. I just do want to let everybody know that this is a 90-minute webinar. So you will be getting 90 minutes of credit for this. So when we reach the top of the hour, we will go beyond and into the 1 to 1:30 time frame if you're in the East, on putting some things out for you. So Joe, are we ready to get started?
We are. So
we're going to collaborate on this a little bit.
Yep. So the first thing I want you to do, Jim, if you don't mind, is on the CodeJumper app, go ahead and choose on thread 1 the sound set piano.
All right. So I am going to double click on that sound set. I could hit the enter key if I wanted to do that. And am I going to find the piano in the sample sound sets, or am I going to find the piano in the MIDI instruments, Joe?
I believe it's under sample sound set.
All right. So let me pull this down.
Pretty positive.
You're pretty positive.
I'm pretty positive.
Would you bet like Cubs tickets on that?
I would not bet Cubs tickets on
It's
it.
a
No.
good thing you wouldn't be betting Cubs tickets on it, because you're going to find the piano in the MIDI instrument.
MIDI. Yes.
It's a
Yeah,
good
there we go.
opportunity
Yeah.
to talk about.
I couldn't remember if it was a MIDI or not. I
Yeah.
couldn't remember how they had it. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about these sound sets. So the sample sound sets that you get with this include everything from animals to cowboy and country to explosions to Frere Jacques. So there are a number of different sound sets, and the lessons do invite you to select one of these sound sets. And these sound sets are really going to vary. So some of the sound sets are going to be for younger students, and some of them would be more appropriate for older students. In the area of MIDI instruments, the sound sets that you get range from the piano to violin to square lead. What is a square lead? Anybody know? You've got choir. Have we stumped? Maybe we need to add this as a poll question. I'm not sure.
I have
Maybe I'm
no
not even
idea.
pronouncing that correctly. So you've got MIDI instruments, and then finally,
Never
Oh,
mind.
no, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was going to say square lead may be some sort of synthesizer sound that's a typical term in electronic music.
Thank you very much. Great. All right. And then you can actually create custom sound sets. I have 3 that I've created. One is Music Today. One is what I call Space Battle and Race Today. And we're going to get into those custom sound sets, but those sounds need to be in either WAV or MP3 format. Again, that's WAV or MP3 format. Keep that in mind, keeping in mind that there is a quiz for this. So Joe has specifically asked me to select the MIDI instrument, and we are going to go with piano, and we are all set there. So thread
All right.
one.
So what we're going to do is we're going to plug a play pod into the hub in the thread 1 jack. So,
Right.
Yep, there we go. And you're going to tune it to, you're going to turn the donut shaped dial to C5.
Okay. Now,
And then, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, can you guys confirm that I am sharing my sound as I turn this?
Yes.
We can hear it.
Great. All right. And you wanted me to turn it to C5?
C5, correct.
All right. So that's F5, G5, A5, B5, C6, and that's it. C5, right?
Yep.
Right.
And on the duration dial, we wanted that to play for 1/2 beat.
For 1/2 beat. Okay. So there's 1 beat. There's 2 beats. There's a 1/4 of a beat, and there's a 1/2 a beat.
There we go.
All right.
So now let's go ahead and I just want to let's go ahead and just play just one that tone. So go ahead and hit the play button on the hub, and then also let's just trace your code. And what I like to do with that is let's go ahead and do the read your code. So the 2 hit the play and the stop button at the same time on the hub.
Okay. So I'm going to press the play and the stop button simultaneously, and I'm going to trace the code.
Thread 1 piano. Play C5 for 1/2 a beat. End thread.
All right.
So to make this go a little faster, if you want to go ahead, can we go ahead and connect 3 more play pods?
There's 1. There's 2. And there's 3. Just going to
All
wrap
right.
those around. All right.
So on the second play pod, so we've already got the first one set, so we're going to leave that one alone.
Okay.
So on the second play pod out from the hub, we're going to play D5 for 1/2 beat.
D5. Okay.
Yep.
So there's D5, and it is already set for a 1/2 a beat.
Awesome.
All right.
On the third pod, we're going to play E5 for 1/2 a beat.
Okay. And you said 1/2 a beat, right?
Right.
All right. And then the last one.
We're going to do F5 for 1/2 beat.
Okay. And it's set for 1/2 a beat.
All right, so what we're going to do is go ahead and play the program.
Okay.
All right, and I do not have a great music pitch, so I just want to make sure that that code is correct. So can we go ahead and trace the code by pressing the play and pause at the same time?
That is correct. All right, here we go.
Yep.
Thread 1 piano. Play C5 for 1/2 a beat. Play D5 for 1/2 a beat. Play E5 for 1/2 a beat. Play F5 for 1/2 a beat. End thread.
All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to continue on building. So we're going to go ahead and connect 2, 3, 4. We'll go ahead and connect the final 4. All
right.
I did this a little out of order, but that's all right.
All right. And again, just a reminder that as we're doing this, we are building a computer program, right? We are putting together a sequence. We are putting together an algorithm. All right. So we are now going to adjust the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, correct?
That is correct.
All right. So this should be the 5th one right here.
So
right.
the 5th one's going to be G5 for 1/2 beat.
All right. It's all set.
And then the next one is going to be play F5 for 1/2 beat.
For 1/2 a beat?
Yep.
Okay.
The next one is going to be play B5, B as in Bravo, for 1/2 beat.
B5 for 1/2 a beat. Okay. And then the last one?
Play C6 for 1/2 beat.
C6 for 1/2 a beat. Okay.
And that's the end of the thread. So what we're going to do is we're going to just go ahead and let's read it first. Let's trace our thread first.
All right. So we're gonna trace our set. Now I have these sort of curled around so they can get into the picture. So I want to make sure that I find my first pod, so play pod, so that I can start moving around. So putting my hand there, and then with my other hand, I'm going to play back the code by pressing both the stop and the play button simultaneously.
Thread 1 piano. Play C5 for 1/2 a beat. Play D5 for 1/2 a beat. Play E5 for 1/2 a beat. Play F5 for 1/2 a beat. Play G5 for 1/2 a beat. Play F5 for 1/2 a beat. Play B5 for 1/2 a beat. Play C6 for 1/2 a beat. End thread.
That sounds great. So
We're
let's
ready.
go ahead and play our program. Let's run it.
Ooh.
Awesome. Sounds wonderful.
Right.
So one thing to note here that I did not talk about when I was talking about the hub being the brains of the operation, it does run on AA batteries. So on the back, this actually does switch off. So when you're not using the Code Jumper hub, definitely make sure to turn that off so you're not wasting the batteries. It takes 4 of them, just so you're aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, just if we kind of go back to some of that vocabulary, we were talking about a computer program, right? We were talking about sequence. We were talking about commands and algorithms. I mean, that ability to be able to come in with that donut-shaped dial and change the piano tune, right, allows us to be able to, give the program commands, right? The ability to be able to play the program itself, the ability to be able to change, the ability to be able to sort of, envision, this piano tune being played, and to be able to troubleshoot and communicate. And Joe and I going back and forth on that. We're gonna take that and we're gonna sort of move that now to another piece. But as we transition from this and really creating our first computer program here, are there any questions that we need to address? I see there are a couple of things that have popped into the chat. So anything that we need to address, Betsy Ann?
No new questions have come in. I can open the chat, however, so we can get some more questions coming in.
And Sully, don't forget, we're going to be transitioning to the custom sound set next.
Right, you got it. Thank you for that reminder. All right. So as we do that, I'm going to minimize and I'm going to maximize. We'll talk a little bit about that. So when we go ahead, Betsy Ann, is that
Oh,
anything?
yes, Jim, there's a great question that has come in. How does the person know which note they are on? So can you talk about that not only in the app on your computer, but also from the perspective of the pods themselves?
Yep. So they would be able to know what note they were on specifically in the process of tracing the thread. So if I were, say, to disconnect, let's say we'll just leave one connected for the sake of simplicity, they would be able to go ahead and trace the code.
Thread 1 piano. Play C5 for 1/2 a beat.
So that's one way.
End thread.
That's one way that they would know that C5 is selected. And then the other would be is if they had a screen reader, they would be able to move through the application with the screen reader, and it would be able to read the thread for them in that way as well. They would also be able to enlarge it.
Yeah. So what I like about this is you get the best of both worlds. If you're kind of building a program, you can keep your hands on the hub and the connection and use the play pause at the same time to read your code or trace your code back. The other way would be if you're kind of, new to the app, or maybe you're just a little uncomfortable, yet, or maybe you're like looking for the parts and you got your hands up, towards your computer. You can use the tab and the arrow keys to move around the app and read what note you've got selected.
Yeah. All right, so let's introduce the idea of custom sound sets and why they're there. And we can sort of frame it in the area of UDL and the area of expression, engagement, and representation, and specifically with regard to engagement. So if I were to, say, ask Nikki a question to find out a little bit more about who Nikki is and what's central to Nikki. Nikki, on a Saturday afternoon, if you could be anywhere doing anything, what would it be?
It would be 72 degrees. The sun would be shining, and I would probably be skateboarding.
There you go. All right. So skateboarding is something that would be central to who Nikki is. So one of the things that I would be able to do is to go out to various places on the internet and maybe pull in sounds related to skateboarding. And if I really wanted to engage Nikki, I would be able to pull together a computer program that might play a story that revolved around somebody on a 72-degree day with the sun shining, arriving at the skate park, skating for however long, and then heading home, right? So when we think about what's central to the kids that we work with, maybe it's auto racing, or maybe it's football, or maybe it's horses, or whatever. The wonderful thing about this is that you are able to get creative, to be able to engage the kids. And if you can't find those sounds, there are different ways that you would be able to create those sounds on your own to tell that story, or to play that story, or to play some music, right? So how do we go about creating those custom sound sets? Well, I have gone out and I have downloaded some sounds related to auto racing. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they are MP3 files. If they're not MP3, they should be WAV. We cannot use MP4, so that's important. So I'm gonna select this button that says sounds, and in the area of custom sound sets, I have a button that would allow me to add a sound set, and I have the ability to be able to delete a sound set. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think that we have any limitations to the number of sound sets that we can have. So one of my sound sets is Music Today. One of them is Space Battle, and one of them is Race Day. So I'm going to select the sound set for Race Day. Now that sound set can have up to 8 sounds. And so the sounds go as follows. There is a sound for countdown. There is a sound for starting pistol. There's a sound set for Formula One, if you're a Formula One fan. There is a sound set for Ferrari, if you're a fan of Ferrari. There is a sound set for a car accelerating. There is a sound for a car spinning out. There is a sound for the crowd, and it was entitled Go, Go, Go. And then the 8th one is empty, right? So I'm going to add a sound to sound number 8. So I'm going to select it. And then the buttons below include listen, add, and delete. So what do I want to do? I want to add a sound. So I'm going to select the add button. I need to know a little bit ahead of time. So what do I want the sound name to be? I'm just going to call this finish line. Okay. And then I'm going to choose the add sound file. And when I do that, for me, it just goes out to Windows Explorer, where I can choose from a number of sounds, again, that have been downloaded. And so one of them is named 15,000 people. And the one down here is Sports Crowd Go, Go, Go. I've used that for my start. So I'm going to use my 15,000 people for my finish line. So I'm going to select that. And then I'm going to choose done. Now I can also play the sound file as well if I wanted to, so I can listen to it. So if I click on listen, it begins to play what I'm defining as the finish line. So with that said, I've been able to go in and I've been able to build this sound set around auto racing, right? So I'm going to click home to go back to the home button. And then I'm going to come into my thread. I'm going to double click on my first thread. I'm going to go from sample sound sets to custom sound sets. I'm going to go from music today to race day. I'm going to click OK. And now the team is going to help me build out this race day sound set. And for the sake of time, we'll just do a few of them. So team, I've got my first PlayPod connected. And so let me know as we go through this, what we want to use in terms of our starting sound. So I'm just we're at countdown. Here's our starting pistol. Formula One, Ferrari, car accelerating, car spinning out, crowd go, go. All right, what do you guys want to use for the first one?
We should probably count down.
All right, so we want to go to countdown.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, so I've got my first one in there. What do I want to use for my second one?
Pistol.
Pistol.
The pistol. All right, I'm gonna use my donut. Oh, I need to bring up my my camera, don't I? Sorry about that. All right, so let's see.
5.
There's our starting pistol. All right, so what do I want to use for my third sound?
The engine revving.
The acceleration.
Acceleration. Yeah.
All right, that didn't connect, so let me plug that in again. If it doesn't connect, click it in there, you get that clicking sound.
That's what's great about those sounds.
Yep. All right, now I have these set at all 1.5 times speed so we can kind of get through this. So we've got our countdown, we've got our starting pistol, we've got our car accelerating. Let's do one more. What do you guys want to do for the next one? You want to do Ferrari? You want to do Formula One? You want to do car?
Let's spin out.
You want to spin out?
Let's spin
All
it
right.
out.
All
Yeah,
right, here
that
we
sounds
go.
like fun.
5.
There we go. All right. All right. So in the spirit of tracing, then I can come back in and I can press my 2 buttons together. Baby.
Thread 1 race day. Play countdown 1.5 times speed. Play starting pistol 1.5 times speed. Play car accelerating 1.5 times speed. Play car spinning out 1.5 times speed. End thread.
Now, team, are you guys all good with that rate? You want to change any of those rates?
I would change the rate of the countdown to be maybe 1 times speed.
All right. So I'm gonna find my first play pod, and then I'm gonna make my adjustment.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Ah!
Scary.
5,
All right. All right, you guys ready to play your computer program?
Let's do it.
Let's
All
do
right.
it.
All right, here we go.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, very good. Job well done, everybody. Job
Nice.
well done. All right. So, Joe, I know we talked about bringing in another sound set, right? I think we wanted to do Beethoven, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes.
All right. So let's jump at that, and then we'll jump into we'll bring this race to a close. So I'm going to change my sound set from custom sounds back to my sample sound set, and I'm going to change animals to Beethoven's Fifth, and I'm going to click OK. And I think we're sort of in that exploration mode here where
Yeah.
we're learning about commands and whatnot, right? So how do you want us to explore this?
Let's go ahead and change the donut shaped dial so we can kind of hear the different sounds.
All right, here we go. All right, I need to increase.
There we go.
All right, here we go.
So that's what it's going to start with.
Okay.
And I love the screen reader because it's doot, 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 dumb. It's wonderful.
You know, something that I've just got to say, I haven't heard this sound set yet, and every sound set that I've heard is such high quality. Like, I am always surprised at the quality of the sound samples.
All right.
All
So
right.
we're going to plug another pod into the play pod into the to number 2 and the
Okay.
plug it into the chain there.
All right.
We want the second one.
All right. I'm leaving it up to. I mean, I enjoy classical music, but what do we want next?
The
So it
second
needs-
one, I think, right?
Yeah, the second one needs to be da 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 do, like DOH. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah,
Leave
that's
it
it.
there. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. All right. What's
then-
And then it's TTT2, isn't it? For or
Yes. Yes.
is it, I think it's that one. Yeah.
all right? Now
then-
where?
We can
then
do
it's-
TTT toe again.
There you go.
All right.
And then we'll add one more TTT toe, and then we're in for flums and flaws.
Oh man, so technical. Oop, I gotta. Let's see here. All right. And then what'd you say? Flums and flaws?
Yes.
This is-
So number 6 is going to be a flum, and then number 7 will be a flaw.
All right. And this is that problem solving. This is computational thinking, and it doesn't hurt that when one of your team members is like majored in this in college. All right, so you said we flum, and then we need a flaw.
Yes.
There we go.
There you go.
All right, is that it?
Yes.
All right, should we trace the code?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go.
Thread 1 Beethoven's Fifth. Play da-da-da-dum for 1 times speed. Play da-da-da-do for 1 times speed. Play t-e-t-e-t-e-to for 1 times speed. Play t-e-t-e-t-e-to for 1 times speed. Play t-e-t-e-t-e-to for 1 times speed. Play flum for 1 times speed. Play fla for 1 times speed. End thread.
All right, here we go. We're gonna play this is our third computer program. Here we go.
They're going to hire you for an
Woo!
orchestra show.
Yes. All right. We just need that little extra time to kind of get into being able to do this. We just can't do it in an hour. That little extra time allows us to be able to kind of go in and illustrate some of these points. And so I think we're ready to bring this train into the station. So Nikki, can you share your screen? And our poll question, Paul, you're up.
All right. So we talked a little bit about sounds and actually showed you quite a bit of sounds. So we want to know what types of sound files can CodeJumper pick all that apply? MP3, MP4, WAV, or WMA? Which of these can you upload to CodeJumper and use for your own fun? MP3, MP4, WAV, or WMA?
They
And
come.
we have another question that was entered into the chat. Can you intermix all the threads together? So while each thread is a standalone, you can play multiple threads at the same time. So one thing Joe and I did when we were playing Beethoven's Fifth was we added a percussion line and we experimented with using snares, hi-hats, on a second thread that was played simultaneously with Beethoven's Fifth. We also added a third animal sound effect to that, but that was more just for my own enjoyment and not for creating a real authentic orchestral performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can merge all 4 threads together if you wanted to, or you can kind of do if this then that. So if you wanted to play thread 2 at a certain point, or maybe have like a competition, like is it going to choose thread 2 or thread 3, you could kind of do something like that. So there is some endless possibilities there that you could kind of create.
And you can actually blend CodeJumper kits together as well. So if you have 2 kits and you wanted to have an extraordinary number of play pods and or merge, you could do all of that. And this, folks, this is sort of the foundation of coding, and it is so critical from what I have heard and read about in the process where these concepts are developed here. And then when the kids move into other programming languages and coding like Python, they carry with them these ideas and concepts and apply to text-based coding. So how are we doing with our responses?
We have had about 52% of our audience participate in this poll. So I can go ahead and share our early results, or we can continue to let people respond.
I think we're ready.
All right. Well, for what types of sound files can you upload to the CodeJumper? This one was a multiple choice question. 91% said you can upload MP3 files. Only 13% said you can upload MP4 files. 70% said you can upload WAV files. And 17% said you can upload WMA files. Jim, which are the correct responses?
MP3 and WAV.
Great.
All right. So I think, folks, we're about to wrap this up with some discoveries, and I think Paul or Betsy Ann is going to help us out with that in a second. But a couple of things I wanted to mention, and again, when we do the next one of these webinars, Joe and I are going to walk through another one of these lessons down the road. We're going to bring in some new ideas to this, okay? This is all about equity, right? And there is a lot to say that the earlier that you get kids involved with STEM and STEAM types of activities, the more likely it is that they are going to engage in those activities throughout the course of their education, and that they will pursue careers in those areas. And in the month of May, you'll hear this story about a student who started using this, who prior to getting into CodeJumper's career aspiration was to be a professional wrestler. Now, there's, I'm sure, nothing wrong with being a professional wrestler, but there are a couple of hundred of those in the United States. So the likelihood of becoming a professional wrestler is not high, but it's always great to dream big. But why did that particular student want to become a professional wrestler? Because that's what they knew, that they had observed their brother and their father watching professional wrestling as they grew up, and that's what they wanted to be. But after spending a quarter with working with CodeJumper, And getting into some of these concepts, it began to transition to think, hey, I'd want to be a computer programmer, right? So that's where that equity piece comes in, where we allow all kids, regardless of their shape and size and the color of their skin and where they live and what they're able to do, we expose that to them. We allow them to be able to dream and get into some of those goals. And quite frankly, for me, that is what it's all about. I say over and over again, been around for a long time, longer than I care to admit. And when I see the kids that I worked with when they were 6 and 7 years old at a national technology conference, and they stroll up to the booth and they say, "Mr. Sullivan, do you remember me?" It just makes my day because they are there pursuing an interest and a passion and a career and an education. And I was a part of that. And you guys are all a part of that too. I'm going to step down off of my soapbox. And I think we're going to talk a little bit now about what we've discovered today. Is that right, guys?
Right.
Right.
And just remember, this is just one lesson out of the whole group, and there's many, many, many more. So we've just introduced you to one of the lessons today. Discoveries. We've discovered that Code Jumper is designed to teach block coding. We've also figured out that it's good for individual instruction or group instruction or some combination of both. It's for students of all different abilities, and that the lessons are built around technology standards by teachers for teachers. So we're not just picking random things. We're not just picking things just because they're fun. There's a purpose to all of these things. It goes beyond just fun. There are specific standards that we're trying to teach. We have a list of resources here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different resources. Codejumper.com, which is where all the lessons are found, and a lot of other information about Code Jumper is located. Code.org, k12.cs.org, which is going to have a lot of different resources and explanations of different things. And a couple of other ones here. All of these are coding resources. And if you want to understand the how and the why, check out these sites. 5 different things you can look at. In addition, there is something going on now that we definitely want you to know about. It's the 2021 National Coding Symposium. It's a free virtual event. It's hosted by the APH Connect Center and also by the California School for the Blind, which is a CSB. It's going to be taking place from Tuesday, May the 11th through Friday, May the 14th of this year. You can learn more about it and register at aphconnectcenter.org/coding. Keep seeing that number go up on a daily basis, and we're really glad to see that. Get all the information on that website, find out more about it, and you can really learn quite a bit about it on May the 11th through the 14th. And finally, Code Jumper. We've already told you codejumper.com is the place to get information about all the lessons and learn about the product. It is available on quota for $795. It's also available non-quota for $999. And so we would encourage you to take a look at it, learn more about it, and get it and use it with your students.
So Betsy, why don't we go ahead and give that closing code? And I know there was a question that popped up, but let's give the closing code so those who need to be on their way can, and then we'll answer that and any other questions up until the 1:30 time frame.
Awesome. So the closing code today is SEEDS, SEEDS. SEEDS is the closing code today. And I'm going to drop again the link to our ACV REP credit certificate request page for easy access.
All right, let's see. The question is there a way to get the Code Jumper program other than downloading from the Microsoft Store? Our board has blocked the store on our, so Joe, how else would they be able to get the Code Jumper app Is that something that they would be able to download from somewhere
The-
other than the?
This has come up before, and I believe it. It's one of those things. I used to do customer service a lot on this when it first came out, and I stepped away from, due to COVID, not in the building as much. I believe they haven't. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think there's an exe file, if I'm not mistaken, that they can install from, but I'm not 100% sure if we ever there was. We tried to do it through the store because it's an easy way to massively get it out there. Like, so Microsoft's got it in the store, you can download it on any computer, but yeah, you run into the situation on some school computers, especially where that's not, it's not capable. I can check into that and email you back. Because I don't want to tell you something that's false, but I believe that we had talked about and tried. I tested it a few times running an exe file, but I'm not sure if we ever officially like put it out there or have released it. But I'll check into that.
Okay.
If we can we get their email? Is it possible?
Yeah, what we would be able to do, Joe, is in the follow-up message to this particular group or cohort, we can follow up with everybody in the cohort. So
All right, cool. Yeah.
Great. All right. So if there are other questions, we have a couple of minutes. We do need to stop at 1:30. I don't know if when we can look for those questions. I don't know if Joe has another Indiana trivia question. And we have another Hoosier with us. I don't know if Nikki wants to ask. And I guess maybe we'll have to give some love to Kentucky and do some Kentucky trivia.
We do want to let everybody know that the next Code Jumper webinars are May 20th and May 26th. May 20th is Shelley Mack and Robin Lowell.
Highly recommended.
Yep. And May 26th, Joe will be back with us and we'll be going through threads at that point.
Sweet.